Welcome back to Nick Lenz's Comic Corner, classic lesson known classics. This is episode number 3404 and Doubleshot number 3298. Now, both these two trades, one is a trade that was just published by IDW. The other one, originally, well, it's on its third publication company. Actually, it's fourth. First Marvel, then Devil's Due, the Hasbro declared this one non-canon. IDW, and it was Skybound under Image. Image under Skybound. We have G.I. Joe, Real American Hero, Volume 4. This contains issues 316 to 320. After I read these issues, I had to check and see, because these issues are fairly recent. I've been falling behind on reading comic books. For the past year, that's been kind of an issue with me. I just haven't had much time because of all the Toku stuff and all the anime I'm watching. I just haven't had time to read this stuff. Thanks to reading this trade here, I got a few more issues done for the series. And also, just before I did the video here, I managed to catch up with this particular series. So yeah, it's officially caught up now. Hooray! So, like I said, this basically contains issues 316 to 320. Larry Hama is still the writer. He's been the writer since 1982. Paul Pellicer is on the artwork. Now, I forgot to mention, continue here. Larry Hama didn't do all the issues for this book. Yeah, the book may have, as every issue came out this month, 323 issues, he has not written every single issue. In the case of the Marvel era, he wrote about 10 issues for that one. IDW, he did write all the issues for that one. He also wrote G.I. Joe Origins. For Skybound, obviously, he writes the issues. So we start off with Camp Greer, where basically we have a checkpoint going through. We have Dr. Mindbender, who still got a rash on him. Because it seems as though basically he got a part of explosion. So Dr. Mindbender is defective, of course, and he gets experimented upon, probably to heal his wounds. And also, Destro and the Baroness have kind of left Cobra. Baroness is in a wheelchair. Yeah. Well, you think she is, and then she managed to get up out of her chair and go to a room, takes out a knife, and tries to stab somebody. Who this is what's the guy they were just chatting with. And apparently she's faking with wheelchair all along, and it's more, then we go to basically Camp Greer. More Joe stuff here. And then we see, like, Springfield, the ruins of Springfield. Yeah, the place was destroyed, and it was a Cobra stronghold. It is a house, of course, and you think, like, now the thing is, Springfield was destroyed by of course, G.I. Joe. It was a town that was in economic ruin that basically Cobra Commander just saved the town. He basically recruited the entire population into Cobra, mainly because according to them, the American government basically abandoned them. They were so isolated. They felt so isolated, they basically had no choice. But, yeah. So good action here. Really good stuff here. And then, of course, we have more of the Steve series. And of course, he stick around. It's like, my unit was estimated no longer effective. Domestic registrations. Okay, you're cleared. I'm marking on for returning to former residence. Yep, So yeah, they go home. And we see that apparently his son, actually no, it's a kid, who's wearing a Boy Scout uniform, except it's done in the style of being a Cobra. Yeah, you're probably thinking, how would I know this is basically a Boy Scout style uniform? Because I wore one when I was much younger. This was over 30 years, about 12 or 20 years ago, I wore basically a Boy Scout uniform. Yeah, and no, it was not with an armband like that. There was basically, there's a neckerchief he's wearing, the button-up shirt. Yeah, except when I was in, it was khaki. Currently, it's green. Not sure why they changed the color for it, but they did. They also apparently they also wear these things on the shoulders. When I was part of it, the shirt was khaki, and the things on top were green. They've changed a lot of stuff since I was in Boy Scouts. I basically finished the Boy Scouts almost 20 years ago, so yeah, and then of course Dr. Mindbender gets fixed at this facility. He's basically like got a new look to himself. Yeah, the old look that he had since his debut back in the 80s, where he's shirtless. Yep, he's no longer has that. He's got this brand new outfit. I don't have a problem with it at all. I'm sure probably some old school fans might be offended by the fact that Larry Hama changed a man's look. I personally don't have a problem with it at all. One thing, it's still Dr. Mindbender. It's just an updated look for him. So, yeah, he takes out look like some bats. And then we see this guy in a shirt, and of course he's wearing this. Then we have these various people he's interacting with, which are all dying. Yes. Then we have basically a guy who's a Castle Destro. He gets taken out by Destro himself. And the Baroness is back in a chair, despite the fact she's perfectly fine. It's weird. So, yeah, based in Camp Greer, not the pit. Not basically Alaska, it's Camp Greer. Oh, by the way, Serpentor Khan, he's dead. He is no longer here. My guess is Larry Hama probably decided to retire the character after the character had been active since pretty much the 80s, and he decided to simply retire him. Though I was not really a fan of calling him Serpentor Khan, he was simply Serpentor. He's always known Serpentor, and then this book he's Serpentor Khan, and that's what he called himself. So, then we have Storm Shadow come across basically. Now, Storm Shadow, it's basically like a dead Cobra soldier who's come back to life, and Jinx takes him out. And how I know it's Jinx? Because the outfit. Yeah, that's Jinx. Yeah, longtime G.I. Joe character. Larry Hama basically created pretty much the whole cast. Yeah, she's pretty popular. Storm Shadow here is with G.I. Joe here. Storm Shadow has got this reputation of switching sides a lot over the years. Like sometimes with Cobra, sometimes with Joe. Depends on his mood. From what I can tell, it seems like he prefers more G.I. Joe than Cobra. Then we have this holographic unit, basically posing as a rich guy. So then they sneak into Springfield, which apparently is under reconstruction, despite the fact the place was destroyed. Yes. Then, of course, basically spoken Shakespeare. It's like, quoting Shakespeare. Nope, he was actually quoting Paradise Lost. Just by sheer randomness. So, lots of robots. And then, of course, at Castle Destro, where somebody's in his prison cell. And it shows the guy, basically, who was a guest. And then, of course, he breaks out of a cell. Who is the mysterious guy? Well, also he keeps matches in the heel of his shoe, which is interesting, which is a nod to probably James Bond, which could really hammer to basically put a nod to an old gadget from, of all films, Goldfinger, except that basically was like a slot over this tiny little locator tracker. So yeah, it's like a bunch of recruitment. And of course, like, yeah, you're not Nina. And then he's knocked out by the Papa. Nope. It's actually, well, yeah. So who's this? If that's Jinx, probably another person wearing Jinx costume. So lots of stuff happening here with this book, which is awesome. And then, of course, basically he just rats out the JoJo infiltrators because he's basically, he dressed like a Boy Scout. He basically acts like a Hitler Youth. Tattletale. Yep. And like, yeah, they got the place surrounded. And of course, they do business at the casino. Dr. Mindbender is like basically been super strong now. Massive attack. Oh, the attacks are awesome. Duke does practically nothing except he's able to have the silent. He does not go to the field. Yep. And then pretty much the Joes managed to get out of Springfield with a bit of an issue. But yeah, they get out, but they're still attacked by Cobra. But they get out, no problem. They get back. So apparently this is Dawn, not Jinx. Despite the fact the Alpha is known more about Jinx, but this apparently is no one's name Dawn. And apparently it's like, you need to report to range in the AM after PT. You have to update qualifications on new weapon systems. We are adapting. Interesting. And that's kind of the book in a nutshell. Pretty good. Just, it book feels like a lot of setup. Just progressing, a little more story here per se. The most biggest thing that happened with this book is probably Dr. Mindbender get a brand new outfit. Because he's worn the same outfit for decades. Like I said, Larry Hannah probably want to update it. But I'm sure he probably had to get permission from Hasbro to, because technically it's even he created the comic version of the character. He probably had to receive permission from Hasbro themselves to do this. I mean, he can tell as much story he wants to with them, but design for the characters, I'm sure he probably had to call up permission for that. Yep, so, yeah, give book roughly 9 out of 10. So next up we have is Star Trek by Mike Johnson, Volume 6, After Darkness. Yep, this is the first trade, and for the remainder of the series, it is set after Into Darkness, and the ending of the book, ending of the series, leads into Star Trek Beyond, and then it's on to Boldly Go, which is another series that picks up right after Beyond, and I think that's like the last in-continuity book that was released for the Kelvin timeline, because you look out for Kelvin timeline, aside from this book, Into Boldly Go, we have a Nero book, there's a Khan book, and I think that's it. Yeah, so this book contains 21-24 of Star Trek Volume 1. Of course, by Mike Johnson, Efrain Farrar does the artwork with Claudia Bauman, issue 24. So, basically, by the way, Carol Marcus is officially part of the crew now. She's the secondary science officer. Those of you curious, why was she not included in Beyond? I think maybe the actress was not available, so that's probably the reason why they decided to include Carol Marcus. So we started Clean Homeworld, where basically it's like the immediate aftermath of Into Darkness. There's reference here to John Harris, aka Khan Noonien Singh, the Klingons who are in helmets, and basically it's a lot of debriefing. It's something that's quite obvious what happened, and of course basically it's where They have this Starfleet official who's actually working with Admiral Marcus, which Marcus was doing his own thing trying to start a war, and of course they go off doing their own thing. And then you have Spock beating up a bunch of furniture, and he basically just is mad. Probably because Kirk briefly died. So he punches the wall, smashed one of his own instruments, and then he proceeds to act irrational to his own girlfriend, aka Uhura. Yeah. Now the weird thing is, the first 20 issues of the book fill in the gap between Star Trek 2009 and Into Darkness. The remainder 30 issues take place between Into Darkness and beyond. And look, here's Karen Marcus making her comic book debut in this book. Well, this version anyway, in this very issue. And just Spock being, well, a bit irrational. And, well, they still have the bridge in the bottom of the ship for some reason. Not sure why, but they do. So they go to New Vulcan, where, of course, Spock runs to his father, Ambassador Sarek, who is back on New Vulcan now, despite the fact in the book he was last seen on Romulus. Well, apparently he's home, and now we're referencing a muck time here. Yep, so Spock has come to New Vulcan to basically, this issue was, even though, yes, this is more in the continuity of this thing, but it's also remaking Muck Time. Muck Time is a very infamous episode where Spock gets horny. Yes. And the episode itself was noteworthy. Aside from that, is also a critical episode because it is known for being the debut of Chekhov in the original series. Yes, this was actually his very first episode. It's not only that, but it's also the first appearance of the planet Vulcan. Which is like, interesting. Yeah, first time it's ever appeared. No mention of Sarek and his wife Amanda. They're not there for some reason. Though they brought in here, they brought his fiance, which I'm glad the fact they brought up here. You probably thinking, is there some Vulcan combat? Now, weird thing is about the episode itself is that Kirk is not used to the atmosphere of Vulcan, even though when you see Archer be there, he's perfectly fine. You're probably thinking, why is that? Well, the best way to explain that is different time the episode was written. That's pretty much the reason for it. So yeah, we cut to Romulus where we see the Romulan Senate, which, interesting that it looks like the way it did in Star Trek Nemesis. You're like, interesting. No table here, but the interior here, do you like this? I love the artwork here. Yeah, it's like basically because the Romulans were not altered by the whole Kelvin stuff. It is interesting that they have the Senate look exactly the way it did in Nemesis. Like, interesting they did that. Yeah, and so like, lower humans being trusted. And her finds out about the whole betrothal thing. Yeah, because of course now the thing is, in the original episode, her had no romantic entanglement with Spock. The whole thing of her being romantic entangled with Spock, that's a Kelvin timeline original. So, and the reason why that she wants to marry him, so, and of course, her can speak Vulcanese, of course she can, and of course he's not here, so. And of course, yeah, Sarek's like, let me help his son. And, well, interesting fact about the episodes of Muck Time. You see, Kirk had to, he was ordered by Starfleet to have the Enterprise at this location. And despite the fact technically the Enterprise needed to be there, it's just to show the flag. That was simply the reason for it. Well, Kirk wanted to stop by Vulcan, and the other reason why he wasn't charged with disobeying orders was because basically because T'Pau in the episode, though they also had the character in Enterprise, the reason why he was going to get away with this because T'Pau vouched for him and kind of in a way, you can kind of say that T'Pau kind of requested Kirk's presence because T'Pau is a very powerful official. That's why she turned down a position on the council, on the Federation Council. She has a way of influence. And you're probably thinking, is T'Pau in this book? Not really. There's no mention of the guy who actually wanted Spock's the fiance, so. And I mentioned Ponfar. Oh boy, Ponfar. If you're curious, what the heck is Ponfar? It's Vulcan mating season, done once every 7 years. And here's the weird thing. Guess how many Vulcans ever in the history of Star Trek ever depicted to go through this? The answer is 4. And those 4 being Spock, T'Pau, the Vulcan from Voyager, and I'm trying to think of another one. Oh yeah, Tuvok. Yep, Tuvok went with 2. And the thing is, it's basically classified Starfleet as a fever, because that's kind of how it is. Though the way they depict Ponfar in the original series is not the way they depict it in Next Generation and Voyager. It is drastically different. Yeah, where in the case of that one, where Spock can't speak, he is just so... they describe it as being horny. It is weird how they depict it in the episode. That's one of the more things the episode is known for. And, like I mentioned, when inspected later, in later shows, it is like, it just doesn't do this at all. You're probably thinking, does this happen with Enterprise when T'Pau went through this in one season? I think it's season 2 of the show. Well, not really. It's more like she just really wanted to have sex with some guy and it'll satisfy her desire, per se. Though later on she did in fact have sex with Trip. She has sex with him like 3 times in the final couple seasons show. So, then of course, Spock is of course... Now, I appreciate though that the artwork here, this is T'Prang, that's also the name of his fiancé from the original one, where he's like, the whole thing is eyes. It's a bit different, but I appreciate though the writer remembered exactly how the episode went when it comes to Spock, and it's very similar. So then Spock basically goes to this volcano in order to calm himself, and then they beat on the surface, obviously, and they save Spock. Well, and it's like, yeah, home is all these K people. And then, of course, basically the Klingons show up in their weirdly redesigned Birds of Prey. Yep. Though the Birds of Prey they had in the movie were depicted as like small fighters, despite the fact in the main timeline they were bigger. So yeah, like Lost, like nope, not really. Then Spock is beamed to the Enterprise. Also bringing back the planet Vulcan. And they chat, and then of course basically Spock is basically in this little brig, beat him down. And they flash back to the first movie here, which is interesting. And then of course apparently being beamed down on safe ground kind of restores him normal. And then it's like, Captain, Doctor, Lieutenant, my apologies. I have seen the place to press my uniform. I think we'll get you a new one, Commander. All good news to bring. Yep, everything is over normal. Yep, and of course basic, and then we have elsewhere, where we have this mysterious woman. It's like the Enterprise is a part of a new Vulcan system, keeping the surveillance. Latest from the Empires. It reports new Klingon fleet approaching the edge of second run to Orion as anticipated. The Orion please route with us near Kittimer as planned. Do we explain this way, or should you ram us to Kittimer? Patience. Why not let the soldiers fire our battles for us? Time is right. All be revealed. And the book ends, the issue ends with the, believe it or not, the, you're probably thinking, what the heck are these things? These are the tubes that feature Khan and his crew. Yep. And then, basically, they go on their alien planet where it's basically goo. It's basically another adventure. Yeah. It's like they're a former colony, fight a giant creature. It doesn't feel like a remake of an episode of the original series. It just feels like just stuff you would see in the movies. It's not the Gorn. Well, oh, it is the Gorn. Okay, the Gorn. Yeah, they redesigned the Gorn here. Yep. My opinion, not the biggest fan of the redesign. Yeah, and look, here's the way you look in the original series. Yeah. Kind of interesting though with this one. Yeah. But that's this book in a nutshell. So as of now, for this book, we now have 26 issues left to go. We're about halfway through this particular book, this particular volume, and then we'll be done. Yep. So we got a few more trades left to go, and then like I said, we officially be done. Yep. So yeah, that's pretty much a particular video. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, to notifications. Next up is Commodore Zex. Okay, thanks you. Bye.